George likes his chicken spicy.
Spice up your life!
Spicy, no?
And this is the new spicy.
G'day, welcome to Spice. I'm here with Cameron. Thanks for joining us, mate. What is your job here?
So Cameron Walker, and I'm the Synopd OHS officer. My job is occupational health and safety, and that involves me going around and visiting all the Uniting Church congregations and other programs to talk about and promote and provide information and advice on occupational health and safety around the church, and to help keep people safe.
Awesome. And for today particularly, we talk a lot about safe programs.
Yep.
Today we're going to dive into a little bit around safe places as well, and physical places.
Yep.
Why is that important? Like why are we moving in a way that we actually have to consider the types of environments we're running ministry in?
It's a really good question, and it's important because the environment we're in can bring some risks to what we do and how we do our programs. So understanding that environment and then being able to identify some hazards and risks associated with that environment will help us to be able to manage those risks and ultimately have a safe environment where people are safe, and the programs we run in those environments are safe as well.
Yeah, sure.
So that's in buildings and out in the open and off-site in places where we go to as well and run these programs.
Okay. Now, you mentioned risk there, and something that youth ministry for a long time has just pretended doesn't exist, at least these risk management tools.
Yep.
And in the What's Next, we're going to drop a whole bunch of links to resources and things that can help you to do that. But do you want to talk us about what are we doing when we complete a risk assessment or a risk management tool?
Yep, so the purpose of risk management is being able to basically identify hazards, which we can then look at the risks associated with those hazards. And the idea of that is once we can actually identify what the risks are, we can assess those risks, and there's what's called a risk matrix that allows us to assess the level of risk. And by doing that, we understand those risks better, which means we can then discuss options on how to reduce that risk by managing the risk. So that means that we can look at ways of introducing or implementing control measures that can control that risk. An example of that is that if you're outside and you've got a program running and there's a big branch along a path that we might want to be walking around, that's a hazard, and we naturally look at that and assess that risk without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
And we know that there's a risk there because we might fall over it, or someone might trip and hurt themselves. So we then look at how we can manage that. And one of the ways to manage that is to move away from that branch if it's too heavy to move.
Yeah.
And we do something away from that branch, or we take a different path around that branch. So it's not always practical or possible to remove the risk. Sometimes we've got to look at how we can manage that and maybe take what we're doing away from that risk completely. So that's a very basic one that we do without even thinking about. We take it a bit further than that, and when we're looking at managing risks, we can document those things on a risk management plan, or even just as basic as doing a risk assessment and documenting those things just on any bit of paper.
Yeah.
But it really helps us to put it down on paper and use many different people to discuss those risks and the best ways to control them.
Yeah, and I mean, some of them are common sense, and we do already, but actually documenting them and learning from that. And I think we were just chatting before we hit record about this is actually a tool for us to be in effective ministry.
Yeah.
It's not a hurdle to jump, but actually it's a way that we can be sure that we're safe and that we can be sustainable and continue.